Heard that product placement is good because it allows your audience to familiarize itself with a brand without it being shoved down their throat. But anyways, now that I've got my thinking hat on, I would like to go ahead and talk about this leak from Aquarius. Aqua is missing on Twitter. Subtle but significant matchmaking changes in the latest Counter-Strike 2 update. From now on, competitive is 1st to 13, which is MR12, like Valorant, and actually like Counter-Strike used to be a long time ago. Slightly different, but we'll get to that in a second. Seems like devs are getting rid of the short competitive. That was MR8, 1st to 9. Premier matches will have 20-second freeze times, which is the time before the match goes live, before you play your first round. 1 overtime, and the game ends as tie if you tie the OT, which means that you play a classic CSGO overtime, that's MR3. If you tie 3 rounds on each side with your opponents, then the game ends. In this premier mode, which I'm just going to say right now will probably only apply to matchmaking and not like the esports side of things. Of course, tying is possible in the current system as well, but we just continue to the 2nd overtime and then the 3rd if necessary. And 4 30-second timeouts. 4 30-second timeouts. Listen, it's radical, and yeah, it is time to panic. So let's talk about it. Okay, first of all, what is MR? MR is max rounds, and that means that it's the most rounds, it's the max rounds played in one half. So let's take Inferno, for example. You start on T side, you're going to play 15 rounds. To win, if it's MR 15, as it is now in CSGO, you have to win 16 rounds. So you play out the entire first half, but in MR 15, you cannot win playing out one half. You can win 15 rounds in a row, but you've got to win a 16th, so you've got to switch over to the second side. Both halves always get played in this system, even if sometimes it might be a 16-0 or a 16-1. In MR12, that means that you've got a max rounds on both halves to go for a tie at 24. If you play a classic CSGO overtime, okay, MR3, which means that you can 16 will win you overtime, which basically means that a normal game plus overtime could result in a 16-14 win like you would normally see in CSGO. If I have a math right, sorry. There's a lot of MRs, a lot of numbers going on here. And I'm not actually super familiar with Valorant overtime right now, but I know it's not exactly the same. I think it's like 2 rounds and then you switch or something. I haven't played in so long. Anyways, this is to shorten the game, okay, is the point. This is to shorten the game that we know and love. So is this a good thing? And what does this change mean? Well, there's a lot of facets to this change. Now, my grand unifying theory and conspiracy after reading this is we want to shorten the game so that it's more palatable. We want to unify the game so that we don't have 2 different game modes to split up matchmaking queues, and make sure that every casual player has the pro player experience. And that's something that I know that Valve have said in the past, that they want it to be the same for everybody. And I think that also ties into the 4 30-second timeouts, which we can also talk about in a second. So essentially, in shortening the game, this is substantial because, I mean, let's say we compared in history in CSGO, compared Fnatic to Astralis. There's a fun conversation to be had about whether or not peak Fnatic could beat peak Astralis, you know? And the only reason that that's possible is because you can compare those periods of time almost entirely on merit. Yes, there's some map balance stuff. There are stronger and weaker weapons, CZ, OP, and things like that sort of came and went, got stronger and weaker. But for the most part, Counter-Strike's kind of the one esport where it just goes on like baseball. Slight changes come through. There's a cascade of changes. By the end of the game, the beginning looks a little bit different, but ultimately there's a much more in common from the beginning of CSGO to the end than there is different, which can't be said for a lot of other titles. So if we go into MR12 and in CS2, you know, on top of the fact that smokes are changing and all this other stuff, it's just one extra layer of distortion between what comparisons you could make between CS:GO and CS2 for some of the players and teams that we know currently. All right, that's just one potential grievance that could come up in the future. That's something maybe I'll talk about a little bit more as well. So, okay, is this change good? Well, to understand if this change is good, we've got to understand why this change is being proposed. And in my opinion, the change is being proposed because games have gotten longer over the course of the history of Counter-Strike and CSGO specifically, okay? In the gentrification of CSGO and the beginning of CSGO and the corporatization of CSGO and the growth of CSGO, we have had, more and more things that have made the game longer in a way that it's too hard to point out one single culprit, okay? At first, it was meta changes. If we go all the way back to when Old Inferno was in the game, there was one change that many people don't remember, and that was that there was a big problem on Inferno. First of all, maps were incredibly CT-sided, and people were chaining smokes on Banana. So you would chain smokes at the top of car on Banana, no one would come through, round would come to a close, no action, T-team would have to save if they couldn't count smokes, and it was just too hard to enter the site versus a smoke. So people thought, oh, smokes should be shorter because smokes are so powerful. Smokes right now are defining Inferno, maybe the most important map in the pool because all great series owned on Inferno. And it was kind of like killing the enjoyment to watch games end because you had to jump through a smoke or because the team had to sit behind a smoke and end up saving because of it. So instead of making the smoke shorter, they made the rounds longer. Okay? So they actually made the rounds, I think, 5-10 seconds longer. I can't remember the exact numbers now, but that was one small change. And then there was the esports change, which was 4 timeouts per team per map. This is something that teams are now regularly using all of these timeouts so that coaches can get involved in the game, and it's a lot. I mean, both teams can talk during the other team's timeouts, and that's just a lot of small discussions that go on throughout a map, and that does extend matches by a substantial margin over a long period of time. It doesn't feel like much in some games. Okay, then there is the other meta change, which is that they've strengthened the comeback mechanic with the new economy. So I think there's a bit of weird discourse around this one because, in my opinion, the economy with the comeback mechanic being stronger means that games are becoming closer and there's more rifle rounds than ever before. Pistols matter less. In MR12, they're going to matter more again, so you've got to be aware of that. But right now, pistols matter less because of teams being able to win on the second round, the amount of buys that are coming out, and the new economy, which limits the amount of loss bonus, grants you loss bonus the more rounds that you lose. So if you lose 5 rounds in a row, you get max loss bonus, then you can put together a buy, and that allows you to have a very strong economy, and it doesn't get wiped out the second that you lose. So I didn't explain that well. Okay, so because they've added the ability to build up a loss bonus the more rounds that you lose, that means that if you end up winning and then your opponent ends up winning the next round, if you could still have loss bonus built up and you will only go down, one peg at a time every time your opponents win, which means that the worst team or the team that has the worst side or whatever has more chances to buy, more chances to break the economy of the opponents. And so it requires basically a very strong team. It requires a very lopsided game to have a stomp. And back in the day when maps were, and this is the other thing, is that maps were used before very, very CT-sided. And I'm talking overpass 14-1 CT side sometimes. You watch some of the IBAP Power games where Days was calling, and the amount of games that he could pull out 14-round CT sides, and still they had so many problems on T side, but they knew CT side so well. Overpass, nuke, so many maps, and a train were so severely CT sided that you didn't even get the CT side played. Sometimes it was, if a team got 2 rounds on T side, they could make the comeback on CT side. Sometimes they would get crushed if they just lost the next pistol and there was too much emphasis on that pistol. But this is all to say that this is because of the fact that maps are so one-sided, and the economy, there was no comeback mechanic back then. So there were way more, 16-1, 16-2, 16-3 score lines. There were so many situations where you lost the pistol, you saved, you bought, you lost after 2 rounds. Then you start 0-5, you go for one more buy, you lose that, it's 0-7 because you have to save again, and your half is already lost, right? You're already in a terrible situation. So we've got the smokes getting longer, we've got the 4 timeouts, we've got the new economy for strengthened comeback mechanic. We had real imbalanced CT sides in the past, and the esports changes that have come through. We've got extended halftime breaks now for ads. Now, people aren't aware of this because you watch on a stream. You don't see that a halftime break isn't just like instant ready up into the next half. It's like the full, 2-minute break per match. And that also can add up on top of the 8 timeouts, on top of the rounds getting longer, on top of maps getting closer, on top of teams being more competitive with each other. So it's a cascade, right? And it's impossible to find exactly where the problem started and which one to remove or which one to alter to make the rounds and maps shorter, right? Right now, if you look at a competitive map of CS on a stream, you're going past an hour. I think I averaged out a few tournaments back when this discussion was happening a lot, and we were looking at an hour and 5 or hour and 15 minutes in some of the best of ones that were played. The average time is just incredibly long. When we talk about analyst desks that have come into play, we talk about overall production features. I mean, when we talk about the fact that, the day starts with a half an hour analyst desk intro to the day into a match that gets played, a best of 5 can take 5 hours with breaks in between, all of the fact that the maps can go so long. This is not even talking about overtime as something that we don't want to change at all, but it's still something that extends the length of maps. You could have a 3 best of 3 day, which logistically is something that's probably going to continue no matter what. And 4 best of 3 days still happens, even though those are horrible and they should never happen again. And days can be 14 hours, and I would just like to say that from a production and talent perspective, for those of us who have to work the calendar year round at events, we do have a specific bias in this regard where, we can really feel it when the days go that long. There are no other sports broadcasts besides like cricket that actually take this long to show an outcome. I mean, I think it's very nice for a viewer to have a best of 5 grand final and to be able to say, well, to come in whenever they want during the entire day, literally, go do groceries, come back, cook, call their mom, hang out with their girlfriend, play some CS while they're watching on their other screen, then finally catch the end of the best of 5 grand final where you reach the zenith of the energy and there's been so many rounds played and everyone's exhausted and there's some live crowd there that's just they're just sitting on broken tailbones in their plastic chairs because they've been sitting there for 8 hours it can be for a best of 5 grand final or even more. And then to just tune in on the last round and say, wow, that was such an amazing thing. Thank God it's best of 5. It went the distance all the way. It paid off. And I get it. That's actually something that we will not have with MR12. That will be lost. You won't be able to reach that pinnacle. And people who have seen MR12 play out have always felt like it's just so short sometimes. Like, damn, that's it. Wow, they needed a pistol really badly. Really silly things like that seem to sometimes dictate the outcome of maps, and that's frustrating. So, did I say that this is good or not? Well, yeah, there was a time where Counter-Strike was MR12. I think though the rounds were 3 minutes long, so it was not exactly the same game. If we play on MR12 now, the thing that makes this very interesting that has actually piqued my curiosity is the idea that if you that you get 4 30-second timeouts. So it's always been the case that Valve hate coaches, right? Coaches' jobs in Counter-Strike has just been getting worse and worse. People have asked me if I would want to coach. I've been offered coaching roles before, and I have said no. I don't never take this job. It seems like a terrible job to do. It seems thankless, extremely difficult, and you don't even get to play. And every year, it seems like there's one more change that makes the coaches more irrelevant, because there is some disdain from Valve for the idea that the game is played with 6 players. They want someone who plays matchmaking to feel like they're getting the same experience as a pro, and I can understand that. But of course, we're in late stage Counter-Strike. We have analysts, we have coaches. I think we can't just close our eyes and pretend that like somehow we're going to go back to 5 players playing the game. There is going to be a little bit of prep involved. The game is getting to a higher level. It's a real sport in that way, and I don't know. I think it's silly to not try to embrace that in some sense. But of course, like the coach cheating bug scandal, whatever, they exacerbated the problem. All right, anyways, I don't want to get into that, but four 30-second timeouts means that there aren't going to be 8 timeouts potentially taken in a map. Though during the 4 timeouts, certainly both coaches can talk, and because they're after each, well, there's 4, so it'll be 6 rounds for every timeout. Both teams will get to talk. This maybe adds integrity to the outcome of an MR12 game, which I think is the goal here. It's the unification of matchmaking to pro Counter-Strike, so everyone gets the same experience, into also after 6 rounds, you get a timeout that you can talk about, precipitate, rest on, and then use that to come out and then, come through with something that builds on what you just saw. This actually might be good for some teams that don't know when to use their timeouts, so it could create for a more competitive game. I actually really like this. I mean, I really like how it's limited. It's also more structured, and everybody gets them and gets them at the same time. I actually like that part a lot. And maybe there is a way to make MR12 more competitive. I don't know if you can make it as competitive as MR15 without removing pistol rounds entirely, because pistol rounds kind of break the map, right? Like, you can be good at pistol rounds, but like most teams are shooting around 50%. The best team in the world is shooting around like whatever 60 to 70% in their best months or whatever. But pistol rounds are not like full meta Counter-Strike. They're low buys, low utility. The map is designed to balance for rifle rounds. It feels like, with max, utility and all the options. Pistol rounds don't have that. Comes down to like sort of instantaneous headshots sometimes. So anyways, Sean Garrett said it's not real CS. I back that. But I actually like playing pistol rounds, so I don't want it to get removed. So that one's a little bit weird for me. I think this is overall interesting because I think the health of the game will be better with shorter games. I think the competitive integrity will drop a bit, not being able to have teams play for 16 rounds. I think that the longevity of the game, this might actually be a good thing because it's more palatable for a new player or someone who's coming over from Valorant or someone who just doesn't have that much time in their day. It doesn't fracture the player base when they go into queue, who were before going for MR8 or MR16 and no in between. I think it will still have. I think there's more of an. I think it's better for tournament organizers. I think it's better for talent. I think it's better for players if you want to play best of 5s. I think every grand final maybe could be a best of 5 now, or at least the big ones. I wouldn't be upset about it. Maybe the major can be a best of 5 in this format, and that would make more sense. I'm really against how long best of 5s are the way they are. You have to literally think about when you're eating food, to like balance out your energy throughout an entire series. And every map, you're giving it 100% of your focus and concentration. And yeah, like, it's actually unreal the amount that it can take out of you. And I even casting something like that, it's just difficult. It's a lot of effort, but I think at one point I'll say I was super keen on the idea of MR12. I wanted this for CS:GO. I was jealous of how concise and short the games were over in Valorant, but I also knew in the back of my mind it wasn't going to feel the same. Like I knew that MR15 would always feel more epic. You're going to get that crescendo moment at the end of a big match that, the round 30 call that comes through is not going to be the same on the round 24 call, but we'll also adapt, I think, mentally to what we see. And I think we play so many matches throughout the year, throughout tournaments, so many rematches with so many teams that we also don't necessarily need to have every match between these teams be an MR15 best of 5 to prove who's better. They'll have more chances to play, and we have lots of games to play throughout the year. So I think this will be more palatable. I think it'll be, unfortunately, it's just like from a hardcore perspective, I would hate this, I think. But for almost every other perspective, I can understand why, and I think it's good. And I think it addresses a real problem, which is the fact that games have gotten longer, right? Is this to say that we needed MR12 in 2014? No. Games were shorter. There was less production. There was non-analyst deaths sometimes. There was more stomps. There was more CT-sided maps. There was more, none of that was actually a problem. This is a problem that's now, and it's a problem that's probably not going to get better because there's too many small changes that have happened. So one other thing is I just really don't like that in comparing eras and teams over many years, this will be a great divider. I mean, I think Counter-Strike 2 is different enough where it's like, okay, you can't compare teams 1-to-1, but this will make it sort of very different, I feel like, and certain teams will, I'm assuming there will be a little bit more randomness in results, but I don't know. So I just said a lot, and I hope I said anything. I think I'm very excited most for the timeouts. I'm most excited for the 30-second timeouts. I love that, and I love how that fits into an MR12 game, and I like that you're not fracturing the matchmaking base. So, all right, I'm going to lean overall good. I'm pretty excited for it. I can't lie. If this is going to be the case, again, this is a leak. We don't know if this stays in. Those are my thoughts. Even though there's a lot of thoughts, there was a lot to talk about. So I hope that helped. I hope it's not more confusing than it was before you watched this video. And yes, thanks for watching. I'm Launders. This is the Counter-Strike 2 potential leak changing of the game modes from MR15 to MR12.